All right, everybody ready? Walter, let's get started. I'd like to call the order of the Utility Special District meeting. The date is February 19th, and the time is 5:43 p.m. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Chairperson Douglas Lawson.
Clerk's not here. Madam Clerk, go ahead. I'm here.
Mr. Clerk,
Ms. Lawson, are you stepping in?
I'll step in, Mr. Chair.
Chairperson Doug Lawson is here. Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Vice Chair Troderick McCoy.
Here.
Board Member Spiritus. Here. Board Person Lanier.
Here.
Board Person Miller Anderson.
Present.
And Board Person Miller Anderson informed that she is going to be participating via Teams as she is out ill. Mr. Chair, you have our ex officio member, Ronnie Felder. Right. Mr. Chair, you may proceed. You have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Board Member Lanier.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additions, deletions, substitutions?
None from staff, Mr. Chair.
Motion to adopt agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Mr. Clerk?
Chair Member Douglas Lawson. Vice Chair Troderick McCoy.
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus.
Yes.
Board Member Lanier.
Yes.
Board Member Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Motion approved unanimously.
Thank you. Consent, looks like we have minutes. All matters listed are considered routine in action, taken on one motion. There's no separate discussion of the items unless a councilperson so requests. Item be removed from the consent and moved to the general order of business in its normal sequence. Anyone want to pull an item from consent?
Move to approve consent.
Second. Motion been made and properly seconded. Do we have any public comment cards, Mr. Clerk?
No.
For this item, no.
Okay. Roll call when you're ready, Madam Clerk.
Councilperson Lanier,
Yes.
Councilperson Spiritus,
Yes.
Vice Chair McCoy,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson.
Yes,
That's a unanimous vote.
thank you.
I'm Miller Anderson.
I'm sorry, Councilperson Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, that's a unanimous vote.
Thank you. Item on regular agenda is workshop discussion deliberation. Item 5.
Item 5A, discussing capital improvement charges, impact fees, and utility special district to update the water system and wastewater system. Mr. Chair, we don't have any public I'm sorry, we don't take cards anyway, but thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I can have the CFO, Mr. Randy Sherman, to make this presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening. Again, Randy Sherman. I'm the Finance Director for the Utility Special District. Items 5 and 6 are somewhat related. They both deal with impact fees for water and sewer. Item 5A is first item up. This is the, why didn't that show well? don't know why this is, oh, there we go. So again, talking about the capital improvement charges for water and sewer. I'll give you a brief background. I know you're all familiar with impact fees, if we discussed them both on the utility and city side. But capital improvement charges or impact fees are paid by new development, okay, to fund infrastructure costs associated to growth. These fees are not paid by existing customers. This is sort of the entrance fee for new developers to come into the city. The existing connection fees that we have were adopted in 2019, so approximately, well, it says 5 years, almost 6 years ago at this point. And then what you're going to see is you're going to see a very large increase in the water impact fees. And as you may imagine, that is really being driven by the water treatment plant. You met Mr. Rob Ori back in January. He made a similar presentation back then. They developed the impact fees for us. The current water impact fees are $2,110. The recommendation is $8,222. And for the wastewater fees, the current rate is $1,830. And the recommended increase for wastewater is a 4% increase, placing the new fee at $1,904. So combined, we would be going from $3,940 to $10,126. You can see on the chart on the bottom, other water utilities. The top, the lighter color is their wastewater. The blue color on the bottom is their water impact fees. The city or the district, their new rates are the bar on the far right. So clearly this does put us at the top, but as you can see, the blue on the top is our wastewater, is less than most of the others for what they're charging for wastewater. And again, as we can be expected, you know, the $400 million upcoming capital expenditure on the water treatment plant and other projects, our water impact fee is recommended, again, to go up that 289%. And again, that will far exceed or put us where far exceed other utilities. If you look through the rate consultant report, they have identified $364,735,480 of future costs that would be subject to being able to be collected through impact fees. Now that clearly would take an awful lot of development to collect that entire amount, but that's the amount that they're using in their calculation. And again, a lot of that is obviously coming from the water treatment plant. So as I mentioned before, the water is $2,110 going to $8,222. If we follow the statute, which requires that you can't increase the fees by more than 50%, and you have to do it over a period of years, you can see that we would start with 2025, we'd go to 2321, 2026, 2,532, 2027 would be 2,743, 2028 would be 2,954, and then by 2029, the water impact fee would be only 3,165, even though the calculation says that we could go all the way up to the 8,222. On the wastewater, again, the current is 1,830, proposed is 1,904. Because that increase is so small, you can actually go to the 1,904 immediately and still be within the guidelines of the statutes. The item that we actually have before us is there is a provision in the statutes that allows for the board to go straight up to the maximum that is recommended. So again, that would be the 8,222 for water. Again, the consultant has gone through the report and it's giving us certain considerations, being able to justify moving forward in that vein. So part of the capital improvement charge does cover capacity. So again, as you have new residential units or new businesses coming in, we are increasing the capacity in the new plan as compared to the old plan. The district, obviously, as we've talked and you've approved, up to $400 million of borrowing. That borrowing obviously comes at a cost in the form of, interest rate charges. Due to the circumstances of the need and the cost, the consultant, has come to the conclusion that there is extraordinary circumstances, that we do meet the requirement of the statutes to go to the maximum. And just to kind of put this into perspective, so every dollar that we collect on impact fees and use to pay cash for projects at the district and not borrow saves the ratepayers $1.80. So over 30 years, for every dollar you borrow, you're paying not only the dollar back, you're also paying a total of 80% for total interest over the 30 years. The recommendation coming out of the report is obviously to adopt the report and the new capital impact fees, approve the extraordinary conditions, and in essence, adopt the rates at the maximum and go straight to the new rates, to the max. Whether you approve.
Hold on one second. Board Member McCoy, you recognize?
Sure.
What's the extraordinary conditions?
Is the fact that you've got a $400 million plant that you're trying to fund. And by increasing the impact fees, which are again, are new developers coming in, that will go towards the cost of the plant and be able to, in essence, pay off some of that $364 million that they've identified that you could use the impact fees for.
Okay, so what is also the definition of ERU? Because I'm seeing your slide said existing residential units, but I've seen something different in the study. So can you clarify what that means?
So an ERU is the equivalent of a residential unit. So they come up with a square footage for a residential unit. And then when you have a business, you are a multiple of that ERU calculation.
Okay, so explain this extraordinary. How is someone else who's deciding on an undeveloped property, building a single family home, has the responsibility of this extraordinary rate, which typically they're paying for their specific impact into the new system, but the numbers in the resolution goes from 2,000 to well over 8,000. I don't understand how a new user has to experience an extraordinary event.
So again, the plant is being expanded. Okay, there's new capacity being added to the plant. And then there are charges, and again, the 364 million, but there are charges in there that are associated with growth of the community. So again, when a new entrance comes into the market, they're paying, or the impact fees should be paying for their impact to the system. So this gets them entrance in, they get use of the current assets that we have, but then the impact fee pays for the additional costs.
Who makes the determination of extraordinary? I didn't see that in the report.
So it's this board that ultimately will determine whether this is an extraordinary item. If the board does not feel that, the $400 million plant is extraordinary, but, the statute doesn't really give a definition. It just says, you have to hold the hearing, the workshops, and, you make that determination whether this is something that's extraordinary. I think if you look back at the graph and you look at, what we're going to be charging for impact fees, this is out of the ordinary.
Yes, but Mr. Sherman, I'm looking at the statute, and I'm seeing where it requires that a study must demonstrate that it's extraordinary. The study doesn't even mention that.
The study does mention it, and I apologize because I didn't bring up a
I mean, I'll
copy
look
of the
again,
study.
but I'm just confused as to, I'm okay with an increase, but you go from what I read at $2,110 to $8,222. That's 4 times the existing impact fees just for water utilities.
Correct.
But even in the study, it doesn't even reference anything that you're saying about meeting that extraordinary threshold. And the statute says that the increases has to be based off a study, but it's not even mentioned inside of this the study you provided that there's something extraordinary. And I can understand. Actually, I see it here. It says that the need must be demonstrated, but outside of that, there's not a justification for a new home that they have to now pay in 4 times the amount of a home that was built 3 years ago. Obviously, if impact fees are specifically by statute for the purposes of their impact into the system, I am very hard pressed to believe that it's 4 times the amount of a house that was there just 3 years ago. I'm looking for a justification.
Yeah, so kind of put in perspective, the assets that are on the books right now for the utility district are about $85 million. That's the value of the assets. You're going to take that $85 million, and within the next 2 years, that's going to be $485 million. You know, so again, that's the extraordinary. You're not, clearly we're going to pay for the $400 million over time, but you're going to get a $400 million asset in the next couple of years. And that's, and paying it now, okay, helps reduce the cost, helps the ratepayers, versus someone who walks in 30 years from now and makes a payment. Because now you've got them at the max and you've got them buying a 30-year-old system. Your extraordinary condition is the fact that you're building that plant. You know, when we did the impact fees back in 2019, that was non-extraordinary condition at that time. And as you see, the rates are, you know, are far lower back in 2019 because we were looking at the capital that they were doing at that time. While there was some, you know, repairs obviously at the plant to keep the plant moving, but the work was below ground work, pumps, pump stations. You know, it was just normal year-to-year type capital projects. What you have now is you still have all of those projects, and you have this $400 million plan.
Okay,
But it's the board that'll decide whether it's, you know, you feel it's extraordinary. If you don't, that's, you know, and then I would suggest we just adopt the fees and we'll phase them in.
okay, so I guess that's what a slide that, and that's not covered in the resolution, the phase-in.
No, I wrote the resolution as, you know, I told those at a general review, I wrote the resolution with the extraordinary. If that's not the direction the board can go, you could either amend it on the floor here, or I could just bring it back at the next, you know, adjust it and bring it back.
So let me just make sure I'm clear. The resolution reflects what's on the top line. Currently, we're at 2110, and then we're going to go to 8,222 when this comes back before us. But the next line, are you suggesting that we're now going to, in 2025, again in this very year, approve in a resolution that also increases the water?
No. So the resolution, whether we do the phase in or we do the extraordinary, we go to the top, you're adopting the 8,222. We're just going to phase it in if we do the phase in, and you're adopting the 1904. Those are the 2 recommended rates. It may take us 10 years to get there, okay? But those are still the 2 rates. The resolution talks about the fact that we have an extraordinary finding and we're going to go to the top. Again, if that's not what the board wants to do, you can take that out and we'll just phase it in. Or again, we can dispose of this resolution and I'll just bring back an entirely new resolution.
Just so I'm clear, I guess the difference between 25 and 29, the differences between all of those years equates to the same difference between the current and proposed?
No, what it is you're going up 25% every year, so that's the phase-in process.
Mr. Sherman, can you tell us what the percentage is between the 2110 and the 822?
So you can go up 50% in total. Okay, so if we are at 21, that means we can only go up to the 32.
Okay, so,
Okay, so I can go from 21 to 32, but I have to go in percentages. I have to spread it out over the years.
okay,
So we're going from 21, we would go from 2110 to 2321, and then from 2321 next year would be 2532 and so on.
okay, so see, because I don't see that in the resolution for business, like, under the residential.
No, because again, in the resolution, we're adopting the two maximums, the two recommended amounts. And we have, I put in there the finding that it's an extraordinary item and that we are going to just skip the phasing and go straight to the top. That's what I put in the resolution.
Okay,
Chair,
You recognize that, Mr. Peters?
Mr. Sherman, going to $8,000 over a number of years. But how's that going to work with a person who's building a condominium building with 300 units compared to someone who's building a rental building with 300 units? Because the rental person is going to be the same person in ownership 90% of the time for that first few years when those monies are due, yet the condo is going to be flipped to a new owner. So is that new owner now going to take on that impact fee?
So the impact fees are paid up front before they get their certificate of occupancy. They paid all of this up front. So that would be in the price of the building when it gets flipped.
Well, when they pay that money up front for the C of O, are they going to pay the $8,000 or are they going to pay the first payment?
So if we go to the top or the max, they would pay the 8,000. If we phase it, let's just say it's 2025, they'll only pay 2321 and they would never make another impact fee
Right,
payment.
but then the new owners are all going to take that responsibility on.
No, there would be no additional impact fees. They only pay the impact fee once.
Yeah, but if it's $8,000 to be paid over a number of years, so before they're going to get their C of O, you're going to make them pay all those years up front?
No, okay, so they will either pay the 8,222, that's it, one payment, we're done.
Right.
If we phase it, wherever we are in that phasing process, that's what the impact fee is in that year. They make that payment, and there are no additional impact fees that would ever be paid on that property. So it's not that they're paying 8,000 over years. They would pay just 2321 and they'd be done.
And then we're not going to be collecting the full amount of money, the full payment.
Correct. You would not collect it the full amount. If you don't go to the top, you don't collect the full amount. And just kind of, just running some numbers, if you look at that time period, and I just said $8,000 and you do that, and I did include the wastewater, but if you did 2,000 units here, that's about $20 million of impact fees. If you phase it in over this 5-year period, 2,000 units would pay about $5 million. So it's a big spread. It's a big impact on the customers that are paying the
Mr. Chair,
bonds.
follow up. So how is that fair to the person that's building a rental building? Because that person's going to have to pay the full $8,000 over the number of years.
No, they would pay the day they get their certificate of occupancy, and they're done. They're not paying. And
So we're never going to see the $8,000.
you're never going to
That's
see
a
the
make-believe
8,000.
number.
Correct. Again, phasing this in over time. So next time you increase, if you get out to 2029 and you're at 3,165, the next time somebody comes in and does this study, they can only increase that about $1,550. So that only puts you at 46. And if the impact fee is still the 8,000, you're barely halfway there.
Yeah, but based on development time and and what we have on the drawing boards now, you're basing your numbers, when you get that $350 million number or whatever, you're basing it on the full amount of units and the numbers being developed. But if it stops after year one, you're never going to see those numbers.
You will never see those numbers, correct?
Okay.
Sherman? We'll continue with the presentation.
If we're done questions on this one, then I
Yes.
can move to, we can move to the actual resolution.
Mr. Chair, if I
Any
may.
additional? Go ahead, Ms. Evans.
And in order to provide a little bit of clarity and context to this particular issue, the reason that this item was brought forward for the board's consideration is by looking at the capital stack that we can invariably put forward this as an option versus a situation where you can see some of the increases to the customers. If we're able to facilitate grabbing about $300 million, and let's just say development happens over the next couple of years in our community, invariably this board and future boards would have the opportunity to adjust the rates because of the collection that's associated with that. And so, Mr. Chairman, if you want to provide a little bit of commentary to that, because I think that's important, that you're asking for the development community to participate in the cost for the water treatment plant. And if we do, as we've seen development happen, you could look to reduce the actual rate for utility customers.
Right. Yeah, so the water and sewer rates that you adopted, if you recall the night we adopted those, we said these rates are, 100% rates, not counting on any debt forgiveness, any grants, any impact fees. It did have future building, future construction in there. But to Mr. Evans' point, if we looking to borrow $400 million and we can get $20 million of impact fees, we can reduce that $400 million to $380 million, which then, as we talked about, again, the night we adopted the rate, is we can come back, and it was even recommended by the rate consultant, come back every year and look at the assumptions that have been made, check it against what is actually happening, and then allow adjustments for those rates, to be reduced over time if they could be. So again, if you can collect, $20 million over the next 5 years and we borrowed $20 million less, that saves, the ratepayers $36 million, over that time period. So 36 million, that's, about 5% of the debt service costs.
Board Member Spears, you're recognized.
Yeah, so now that I'm digesting what you've brought out in the open here, I think our only, if you want to get the money that you are hoping to get, that we're all hoping to get from the developers rather than the existing homeowners right now, the only way you're going to get that money is if we do the $8,000 right now, and then they pay that money when they get their C of O.
Correct.
And then we can, after the development period is over, let's say 2,000 units are developed, then we can always lower the rate after that. But to get to that number, the only way we're going to get to that number is if we go to the maximum right now.
Correct.
Otherwise, nothing's going to happen.
Correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Sherman, Ms. Evans, anything else on the discussion deliberation? We can go into the resolution.
Yes, we can go to 6A.
Thank you. 6A.
Item 6A, Resolution 5-25 UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, setting the capital improvement charges, impact fees, authorizing the Utility Special District to update the water system and wastewater system capital impact fees, and providing an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do not have any comment cards on this item. The acceptance of the cards is closed.
Thank you. Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Properly seconded. Mr. Evans?
Mr. This item is consistent with the presentation that you just heard, and staff is prepared to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Questions from the board about the resolution?
Yes.
Board Member McCoy, you're recognized.
So, Mr. Sherman, two things. You didn't speak much about wastewater. I do see it there. Considering the challenges we have with the ECR, does this contemplate or considers the amount of capital needs that we have to contribute to the ECR?
Yeah, so the ECR payments are operating payments. We account for those above the line, that we don't count those as capital. So the operating budget is adjusted for the ECR increases. What the capital is on the city side is really the collection and then transmission of the wastewater. And again, we don't treat it, but that's really what the capital is. So it's the pump stations, and the transmission lines to get it to the ECR.
Are we voting on this to authorize the impact fees?
So you would be authorizing, if this resolution passes written, you're authorizing the $8,222 for water, the $1,904 for wastewater. You're welcome.
The questions, comments from the board?
And Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, you're recognized.
With the impact fee monies, obviously, as the board knows, that this is one-time capital that is provided as a result of these projects. And so those monies would most likely be for capital expenditures. So as we look at our transmission and distribution and collection systems, this would be utilized to invest in those particular systems moving forward. So to the councilperson's point on wastewater, as we go through and address some of our roadway conditions and look to do water, sewer, and stormwater improvements, those monies would be utilized for part of the capital stack to facilitate some of those projects. So most of these monies that would be collected would be for large capital projects.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, does this not require us to vote on this by 2/3?
It does. This requires a supermajority, yes.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Am I correct in that it has to be an ordinance as opposed to a resolution?
No, it could be either.
Okay, well, let me jump right to that section of the statute, and perhaps you can give me some clarity on this. And I'm in the same statute that's provided. Is there something different? Because I see.
Well, yeah, but keep in mind, you're in the utility district. Utility district doesn't adopt ordinances.
Yeah, but I think if you look at ordinances, it requires something specific. 166 of the Florida statute requires 2 readings of ordinances. So you're essentially saying because we're in the utility district that we're only going to vote on it one time, even though statute requires that it's done twice?
Correct. With the resolution, you're voting on it once. And the statute does provide for the 2 workshops which we have held.
Right, but was it voted on twice?
No, as a resolution, you'd only vote on it once.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to descend on this because you're not strictly complying with the statute.
Mr. McCoy, if you take a look at 163.31801, paren 2, it states that, and it's the last part of that sentence of paren 2, it's the intent of the legislature to ensure that when a county or municipality adopts an impact fee by ordinance or a special district adopts an impact fee by resolution, that they comply, the governing authority complies with this section. And so because the USD is a special district, it can adopt this impact fee by resolution.
Okay.
Additional comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
Board Member Lanier,
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chairman.
One moment. Ms. Miller Anderson, you're recognized.
maybe I missed it, but so do we make the decision now to do the phasing in or jump straight to the 8,000? Is it understood that's what we're doing, or do we need to make it clear that's which way we're going with it?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
You're recognized.
Yes, this is Randy Sherman. The resolution is drafted to go straight to the maximum, to identify the extraordinary occurrence that we have with the new water plant and go to the maximum.
Okay, so the PowerPoint was just giving us a different option to follow?
Correct. The slide that, if you can see this, the slide that's up right now, this slide would be if we did not go to the maximum and we utilize the phase-in.
Okay, thank you.
Additional comments? Madam Clerk, if you want to continue with roll call?
Vice Chair McCoy,
No.
Board Member Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus,
Yes.
Chair Lawson. The item passes with Vice Chair McCoy dissenting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. 6B,
Item 6B, Resolution 8-25 UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the city manager to issue a work order in the amount not to exceed $1,577,929.50 to Brown and Caldwell to provide owners representative services for construction of well field expansion recently authorized by the district board under GMP number 2, which was November 20th, 2024, and GMP number 3, which was January 15th, 2025. Mr. Chair, we do not have any comment cards on this item. The acceptance of the cards is now closed.
motion?
So moved.
Second.
But if I can have Mr. Jacobs, the Assistant City Manager, to make this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Good evening, Chair Lawson, other council persons in your respective places, City Attorney Nguyen, City Manager Evans, and City Clerk Hall. For the record, my name is Deirdre Jacobs, and I'm the Assistant City Manager here with the City of Riviera Beach. Tonight, I'll be presenting before you Resolution Number 8-25 UD. It concerns the issuance of a work order in amount not to exceed $1.5 million to Brown and Caldwell. It's an engineering firm which will provide owner's representative services for the construction of the wellfield expansion project up under the new water plant facility project. There was one council person that asked for a short presentation, and Brown and Caldwell is here in the event that that is still so desired. The well fields will include a total of 8 wells. I think it's going to be 6 Florida wells with an additional 2 surficial wells. And I believe the commencement of the project will actually start next week over at Washington Elementary for the drilling of the first well. Should you have any questions that I could answer, please ask. And also, Brown and Caldwell is here to answer any technical questions.
Thank you. You recognize.
How do we determine the location of these wells?
I believe that was a hydraulic modeling study that was done, which was used to determine where the wells would need to be drilled.
I mean, are you saying that with certainty? You said you believe.
If that's my understanding.
Well,
Mr. Chair, if I may. Yes, that's in fact what occurred.
okay, so I'm just curious because I've found where wells are just kind of placed in some very unique locations. Now, the one that you're speaking of, the example you gave next to Washington Elementary, I think is city-owned property. But how do we account for that? Or did we not account for it in the past when those wells are just drawn or dropped and drilled on private property?
I can't answer that question. Mr. Nigel, please.
Good evening, Board Chair and Council members. I'm Nigel Gracious, the consulting firm Brown and Caldwell. Just to speak to the question regarding the wellfield siting, Brown and Caldwell participated in a permitting process that was overseen by the South Florida Water Management District to identify sites and go through the technical analysis and associated modeling to justify the placement of sites. The siting of the wells, some of the conditions included availability of property, city-owned property, or right-of-way easements, the proximity to infrastructure needed to facilitate drilling activities, to disposal of drilling fluids, development fluids, etc. So there are a number of criteria involved at the time the work was done in collaboration with the city's utility personnel and the overall direction of the South Florida Water Management District in terms of their review and responding to input and comments. Another consideration that went into the siting of the wells was the spacing, the separation, particularly for the Floridan wells. These wells interact with each other in ways that can potentially have long-term adverse impacts. So we attempted to maintain some minimum spacing among the wells. So given the combination of limited sites available, the required spacing, supporting infrastructure for drilling, and of course, one of the considerations too was the potential impact of withdrawals on other neighboring utilities that had similar systems. So we identified, I believe it was a total of 12 well sites that would provide for build-out capacity for the city over many, many years. And the wells that were selected for drilling as part of this were essentially the most cost-effective wells to develop at this time. So that just in a broad strokes, that's how we came by the specific siting of these wells.
Okay, thank you. Follow up.
Recognized.
So I guess I'm concerned because I've already gotten a concern or a complaint from someone that's adjacent to Washington Elementary. Do we do a zoning change? Because essentially you're changing the use of that property from what is an easement. And if I'm not mistaken, there's already stormwater drains that's already there. And the concern that I have is that when we see these wells go down and have electrical issues, now you're running a generator, which is literally anywhere from 25 to 45 feet from someone's home.
Yes. So again, you know, at the time the permitting was done, the criteria were based on technical considerations. The proximity to people's homes in terms of generators, you have potential solutions for that. You can have generators with low noise emitting characteristics that can be used. Those would be used typically only in emergency conditions, hurricanes, and the like. I know as part of the design process, as it moved from permitting to design process, that's when a lot of the kind of the easement related issues were addressed by the design team. In some cases, there were some modifications to the locations of the wells. The permit allows the wells to be relocated within maybe 150 feet or so. So there were a few minor modifications. In fact, I believe that well was originally intended to be located in a park across the street, if memory serves well, and it was relocated to that available property on the easement just to minimize the impact on park property. So there's been some modifications made along the way to the original siting of the wells.
Right, and I would be okay with it being on a park if it's fenced off. But next to someone's homes, we've seen that these wells do go down. And there are generators that have to actually go there in the cases that they lose electricity. So I'm just not so convinced of the location and how we select it. And again, have you guys considered that there's already existing stormwater infrastructure that's already running underground there?
Yes, and I can turn to the design team to speak with more specificity towards that, because they did the underground utility investigation. the site clearances and, you know, the refined positioning needed to avoid any potential interferences with existing underground infrastructure, while at the same time, you know, designing the tie-ins and the necessary improvements that would require integration. So I don't know, Susan, if you're able to respond to any of the specific.
And Mr. Chair, if I may,
You recognize?
with regards to the design specs for the new wells, they're significantly better designed than in previous wells that the city has deployed. So it does account for, you know, fencing, the telemetry system, cameras, lights, you know, being conscientious of if there's residential property, you know, landscape buffers, fencing and the like. And so these particular wells that are being developed would invariably be the standard moving forward. So I did want to provide some context with respect to the design of our wells for the city of Riviera Beach.
Yes, in addition to that, the well field was designed with some redundancy. Right now, with the city's existing well field, given the capacity constraints and performance issues, essentially the wells are operated 24/7. With these expanded wells, the city will have the opportunity to rotate wells, not have to operate wells all the time. If there's a power outage, the city will have options to activate other wells in the system to make up the demand. So there's going to be a fair bit more kind of operational reliability that will give the city some additional options. Certainly, I can appreciate the fact that you would want to be activating a generator, for example, in the middle of the night. That could be disturbing to customers.
Mr. Chair.
You recognize?
Mr. Grace, we already approved the 8 wells, is that correct?
Correct.
Right, so we're here just approving the owner's rep agreement.
That's correct.
Okay, on these wells. How many wells do we have? These are new wells, correct?
Correct.
These are all new drilled wells. Do we have a number of wells that are being rehabilitated right now?
Yes.
Can you tell us how many of those wells?
The city is on a contract with a firm to rehabilitate 5 wells. Now, I believe they've expanded beyond that because of, you know, other, you know, failures that have occurred, and I believe they're doing some repairs to, I believe, an additional 5 wells. So, and perhaps Mike Miller may have more specifics on that, but they're on a contract to rehabilitate and return to service 5 wells.
Mr. Chair?
You recognize?
All right, so that's almost half the wells that we have right now in service, right? We have 27 wells in service right now.
You've got a total of 27 wells. Not all of them are in service. I believe the number is 6 wells are out of service. There are 1 or 2 that I believe are permanently out of service. A number of the wells are significantly constrained in the amount of productivity you can get out of them. So the objective of the rehabilitation effort is to prioritize work on those wells that are currently in service so that they can add to the capacity capabilities of the system, and then subsequent to that to systematically go through and do rehabilitation to improve the productivity of the remaining wells that are currently in operation.
Mr. Chair?
You recognize?
So what do we need capacity-wise to meet fires and normal service? How many wells do we need to do that?
Okay, so to meet fire flow demand, that requires peak hour pumping capacity. And the way systems are designed, that's the primary responsibility for firefighting lies with your ground storage tanks and your pumps, right? So those tanks retain reserve capacity below which you don't normally deplete. So in event of a fire, then the capacity is already there, deployed through the system to be delivered to the points of application. With the proposed water treatment plant, that facility will include a 5 million gallon storage tank. That single tank has more capacity than all the remaining tanks collectively. So once the new plant is built, you're going to have approximately 7 or 8 million gallons per day. Not gallons per day, but million gallons of combined storage that's available for meeting peak hour demands, fighting fires and the like.
Right, Mr. Chair? can I
You
follow?
recognize?
Yeah, well, that's all well and good, in 2027 or 28, when we have our new plant operating and the new storage facility, but what do we have today?
You've got a combined 4 million gallons of storage in your system.
Okay, and what do you think that's enough to handle major fires and new development and everything else that's going on here right now?
On paper, it's probably adequate. The typical criterion would be, if you have a fire that is a 2,000 gallon per minute fire that's being fought over a 3 to 4 hour period, that's how you determine, now if you have multiple fires occurring in a city, then that would put additional pressure on the overall system, which is not a typical design condition. But the reserve capacity, and then of course, many of the high-rise buildings have fire pumps and so on and so forth. So that should be adequate. The improvements will provide a kind of more robust reserves. The city has done some analysis, and the design consultant has prepared reports looking into those particular issues. So the proposed plant will be a considerable improvement on what they have. The fire flow issues and the constraints that may exist in the system that extend beyond storage may be centered on areas of the system where you may have pipes that are too small in capacity, so you have too much head loss as you're moving flow out. So there may be some companion improvements that need to be done over time to improve fire flow capabilities in certain localized reaches of the system. But those would be issues that relate to more distribution and transmission infrastructure, more so than storage availability.
Mr. Chair, one more
Recognize.
follow-up. These wells, are they going down 12 to 1,400 feet? How deep are you going with these wells?
Okay, so the 6 Floridan wells are going to be drilled into the Floridan aquifer. The typical production zone in the Floridan aquifer ranges from the top of the aquifer, which is about 1,000 feet deep, extending to about 13 or 1,400 feet. So you're going to have casing that's going to extend to the top of the aquifer, and then you're going to have open hole for production for an additional 400 feet. So you're looking at about 13 to 1,400 feet. Now, during the well drilling process, there's a lot of activity with the hydrogeologists on record working together with the well drilling contractor to identify the optimum zones for developing the water, because the aquifer is in uniform. So you want to be able to hit the more productive zones that can give you kind of the most efficient yield of water to minimize any drawdown. So that's part of what will be developed during the drilling process to determine what each well is capable of.
Mr. Chair?
You recognize?
Okay, so Mr. Grace, now I'm going to talk about what we're really here to vote on, and that's your $1.5 million fee to be the owner's rep. I'm sure that's based on a certain time period.
Correct.
Project being, can you tell us what that time period
It's
is?
35 months. So our services essentially mirror the JV's construction schedule, 28 months of active construction with 35 months of overall construction duration. And during that period of time, we'll be providing a fairly comprehensive suite of owners' representative services, daily site inspections, review and recommendation of payment applications, attending to meetings, assuring compliance to the work with the contract, things of that nature.
Mr. Chair, one more follow-up.
Recognize.
Can you tell me how many wells are going to be done at one time, or are you going one well at a time?
Well, for the Floridan wells, they're going to be drilling 2 wells at a time, right? The well driller is in the process of procuring a second rig that they'll be able to deploy and drill 2 wells at a time. You have a total of 6 Floridan wells, so there may be a little bit of a overlap lag for the first 2 because they have to procure a rig, but the intent is that they'll do 2 by 2 by 2. For the surface shell wells, the 2 surface shell wells, which really aren't time limited, those wells, they're 150 feet deep, they're very easy to drill, so that's really not on the critical path. The real advantage of getting those wells done quickly is because those wells will be connected to the city's existing raw water supply network and will help to provide some relief to the existing well field once placed in service. So those wells, I believe, will be drilled sequentially.
Right, Mr. Chair.
Second.
So can you tell me how many wells could be done in a year and a half, 2 years?
So the schedule, and of course, the schedule is in the process of being updated now as part of the overall process. But I believe there's approximately a year and a half or so of actual well drilling activity. And then after the wells are drilled, the intent is to go to subject them to testing to define the aquifer characteristics and finalize, optimize the pump selection design. Then they're going to go through the procurement for the pumping while the wellhead equipment and everything else is fitted. So overall, the actual active well drilling is probably roughly half of the overall duration. The remaining portion of the time is everything above ground, right? But I'm sure Susan will be able to provide specifics regarding the timing and the sequencing of the work.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, is Susan going to tell us when we can get some wells actually operating?
Sorry, Suzanne Meckler with the joint venture of Haskell and CDM Smith. I was pulling up the schedule that we have that was submitted as part of the GMP. And Nigel is correct. The intent is to do the 2 superficial wells and then do parallel Floridan wells, so 2 at a time. Right now, I have that the superficial wells will be done. Just give me a second. With the well drilling, it looks like in August of this year, with pretty much finalizing installation of the well pump towards the end of the year. So that's the 2 superficial wells. The Floridan wells will initiate pretty quickly after that, and then after we initiate movement into the Floridan wells. So I think I have that scheduled for starting in March and going 2 at a time. And that puts us all the way to drilling, for just the drilling. It puts us into about July of 26. For 2 of them, actually, I have going about to October of 26. And then, as he's saying, what we're doing is we're utilizing the first 2 wells that we drill to really figure out the aquifer characteristics and the pumps that we're going to need. So the intent is to continue drilling, but after the first 2 wells are drilled, we'll have a better sense of the pumps that we need to put in. We'll put them on order because they take time, and then we'll be able to install them once they're done. So that's why the duration is, there's like almost a gap between when the well drilling completes and when we're able to install the pumps. Does that help?
Yep, that helps a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions, comments from the board? Madam Clerk, do we have public comment cards?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any public comment cards for this item.
Additional comments? Roll
I
call.
don't know if you want me to answer the questions that kind of came up earlier regarding the location. So if you want me to answer them, I can.
I don't think there were additional questions unless the
Okay, I
board
think there was
is
just a
requesting it.
concern of where the well's located. It is
And I don't think
located
there was
within
any
an
additional
easement.
questions, so I think we're okay.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Madam Clerk?
Board Member Lanier,
Yes.
Vice Chair McCoy,
Yes.
Board Member Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson, unanimous vote.
Thank you. 6C?
Item 6C, resolution number 3-25UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, accepting the recommendation of staff and authorizing the USD chairperson and district clerk to execute a 3-year continuing services contract to provide professional consultation services with Brown and Caldwell Corporation, Carollo Engineers, Inc., Chenmore and Associates, Inc., Craig A. Smith and Associates, LLC, Florida Technical Consultants, LLC, the McKim and Creed Inc., provided for two one-year renewal options based upon the mutual consent of the parties and providing an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do not have any comment cards on this item. The acceptance of the cards is now closed.
Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I can have the procurement director, Ms. Ammons, and utility district engineer, Mr. John Armstrong, to make this presentation.
Good evening, Chair,
Good evening.
Chair, and City Council persons. On June 7th, the Procurement Department posted the solicitation for CCNA for the utility district. On July 11th, the solicitation successfully closed. On November 21st, 2024, there was the evaluation committee. Based upon the evaluation of the packages submitted from the vendors, they were able to submit according to the category that they would like to be considered for. And there were 5 categories. As a result of the evaluation meeting, we are recommending award for category 1 to Corollo, Chinmore, and Florida Technical Consultants. For category 2, Brown and Caldwell and Corollo. For category 3, Corollo, Chinmore, Craig A. Smith, EAC Consulting, Erdman, and McKim Creed. And then for category 4, McKim Creed. On page 19 of the solicitation, it outlines the requirements for the solicitation. And so one vendor was deemed non-responsive for category 1 because they exceeded the page limit. This was discussed at the January UD meeting. I have brought the proposal to show that they submitted more than the 50 pages that they have outlined in the solicitation. And as such, the solicitation on page 15 addresses protests. And so if a vendor feels that they were erroneously barred because of responsiveness, they have an opportunity to protest. And the procurement department did not receive any protests as outlined by the code. And so we are seeking approval to move forward with the recommendations as I've outlined.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment cards, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item.
Thank you. Question from the board? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ammons. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Board Chair,
Yes.
Vice Chair McCoy,
Yes.
Board Member Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus, Chairperson Lawson,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Item 6D, Resolution 9-25 UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the extension of the piggybacking of Florida Governmental Utility Authority agreement with U.S. Water Services Corporation to continue professional utility operations and maintenance staffing support services due to the water system's process reliability, procedural, maintenance, and performance challenges, which has impacted compliance readiness, aesthetic characteristics of product water, and the ability to meet system demands without reliance on supplemental water supplies from neighboring utilities and issuer orders in an amount not to exceed $4.2 million, authorizing the utility district finance director to make payments from account numbers 411-31101, 434-000, 411-31101, 5599990, 41131-102, 5599990, 4113-1103, 5599990, 411-31104, 5599990, and providing an effective date. Mr. Chair, we do not have any comment cards on this item. The acceptance of the cards is now closed. And Mr. Chair, I want to acknowledge the ex officio Mayor Ronnie Felder is present at the meeting.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, at this time, I'll ask for the Assistant City Manager, Ms. Deirdre Jacobs, to make this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Greetings, Mayor Felder, Chairperson Lawson, other council persons in your respective places, City Attorney Nguyen, City Manager Evans, City Clerk Hall. For the record, my name is Deirdre Jacobs, and I'm the Assistant City Manager here with the City of Riviera Beach. I bring before you this evening resolution number 925 that purposely deals with an extension of an agreement with U.S. Water. As you are aware, U.S. Water came to the city in September of last year. Their contract expires at the end of this month. They've assisted us with various operational services and activities to include compliance and staffing and development in particular. Staff believes that they've been quite beneficial in helping us to improve compliance as well as the quality of the water that we produce for our customers. Also, there was one of the council persons that had asked that U.S. Water make a brief presentation about the accomplishments that it has made over the last several months. In the event that you still want to do so, it is my understanding that a PowerPoint has been prepared for presentation. And also U.S. Water representatives are here in the event that you have technical questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacobs. Board Member McCoy?
Thank you. So, Ms. Jacobs, what is the expiration of the Florida Government Utility Authority's original contract? Because it's dated as starting in 2019.
From my understanding, our procurement director is here and that question did come up. I believe it's been extended until 2029. Is that accurate?
Okay, well, I don't know that I've seen that in the backup. And
Yeah,
surely,
it
right?
is 20, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Mr. McCoy, it is 2029. And I think we received a letter to that particular point, and it was included as an attachment.
In this backup?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't see that. What is it called?
South Region? Sorry, I'm being told that it is South Region.
Okay, but, so there were specific portions. I've seen South Region in the original Florida Government, Utility Authority, but South Region was just one of the components that was currently within there. And when I looked at the original resolution, it calls out a number of different things: professional utility operations, maintenance, staff support services, procedural maintenance and performance challenges, which has impacted compliance readiness. So are those called out in the extension that you're speaking of for
Yes,
South
sir.
Regional?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chair, are we going to see the presentation?
Here.
I believe that go ahead, Board Member.
So I don't have a problem with the presentation, but procedurally, I mean, the presentation really has nothing to do with us deciding to go forward. We can have the presentation, but I just wanted to make sure that we're in compliance with the original contract. So, whatever milestones or, review of what they've done in this time is okay, but I wanted to see if we can resolve those questions.
Great. And also during agenda review, and I know this was requested by a board member to possibly have a presentation. So if the board member still would like for us to see it, they can ask for that now, but I don't think the presentation is vital to making this decision. So.
Chair,
You're recognized.
I did ask for the presentation because I think it's important for the public to understand what this entails and how much, to really be clear on the fact that we're trying to utilize them to get us where we need to be, but to not have them on permanently. Because a lot of times we have misnomers that are out there that we're trying to outsource our water department. So I would like to make sure that it's clear what their purpose is for the extension and for the amount of money that we're spending. So I would like to see the presentation. And I explained to them, it didn't need to be very lengthy.
Thank you, Board Member. And I believe we have representatives from U.S. Water that's going to be doing that presentation that was
Yes,
requested.
Mike,
How-
I'm sorry, Mr. Lawson, Mike Miller is here.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, thank you so much. How long is the presentation?
Mr. Chairman, Mayor, City Administration, my name is Mike Miller. I'm with U.S. Water, and thank you for having me. Originally, I think I had like about 13 slides, but my understanding that some wanted it reduced, so I had 5 slides that I was going to go through. But that addresses specifically kind of what we're doing currently and why we asked for the extension rather.
Board members, if we can't allow for U.S. Waters to give a no more than 5 to 10 minute presentation, we do have another meeting tonight, so that's why the presentation wasn't vital to this, but I understand my board's members' concern when it comes to the water. So, board, are we okay with a 5-minute presentation?
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, if you want to go ahead.
Okay, yeah, pull it up, I don't know where. No, that's not, Mr. Chairman, that's for finance.
No, this is
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You recognize.
It looks like the presentation is not loaded onto the system, so if we can allow for Mr. Miller to maybe do a verbal presentation in light of the time associated with this particular item.
Ms. Would a verbal presentation, board member, be sufficient? Do you want us to try to secure the PowerPoint?
No, I can do it verbally.
Ms. Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Okay.
Just make sure you hit the points. And when I asked for this,
So that's
it was
why
asked to be very brief. So I wasn't asking for any lengthy presentation, but I do think it's important that we hit the points of why we're extending this.
Yes, we're in agreement with Ms. Miller Anderson. They just don't have the PowerPoint available. So we're trying to secure that now. Is it something that can be obtained? Is it accessible?
I have it here on my computer. If I could, someone could help me to connect it, and
Go ahead and move forward with the verbal.
Okay.
That's fine. Just make sure you state what needs to be said.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. The original scope for U.S. Water dealt mainly with maintenance. We were to address the significant backlog that they have in maintenance, and it is significant. We have made progress, but there's a long way to go. We still have some issues to deal with regards to the equipment. And the second item was the distribution system. We were supposed to oversee the operations and to improve the disinfectant residuals throughout the system. I'm happy to say that we have done that pretty well, especially in the western part of the city. We're seeing consistent residuals of 1.0 or better. So we plan to continue that, but we haven't gotten to the additional work in the distribution, mainly because of the fact that we're waiting to get the systems over at the water treatment plant completed. Once we get that and once we get the wells up, we'll have the water capacity to actually do the chemical-free burn, as well as the chlorine-free burn, as well as the flushing. And also we were asked to do water quality improvement, and we have improved the water. I'd like to announce that we did get the water color to 3 units. It's not consistent because we still got some equipment that has to be repaired. And we did some training with the staff, with the operators, and to help with the analysis. And we're not just quite there yet. We need to give them a little bit more time to get better at it. And then once we have them trained and we have the systems up, then we should have some consistency in the water quality. The second and the fourth item was the commissioning of the lime slaker, the RDP system, and CO2 feeds. They both are working and they're working properly. Now, the expansion, these expanded roles and responsibilities, we've actually already been doing that. And that's one of the reasons why we asked for an expansion of the scope and to do it formally. And in doing such, we're looking at six different areas. General senior management, basically to help the city manager and assistant city manager to deal with a number of the different, let's say, major issues that come up with regard to water quality, also dealing with compliance. We also, on daily operations oversight, we are going to actually get more involved, if that can be said, with the daily operations. Again, we've already been doing this. We just asked that we formalize it with the contract. The third item is personnel evaluation and development. We have already started that. I've done one-on-one interviews with each of the operators, and it's a very, very interesting question, but we are actually looking to find what type of leadership potential that we have and to be able to structure and set up so we do have leads on each shift that will be responsible for making sure that all the tasks that need to get done on those shifts are done correctly. We're also looking at training programs. We've already started training program. The operators have been trained in compliance. They've been trained in sample collection. They've been trained in lab processes. And of course, we went back and made sure that they understood that this is not arbitrary. This is the law. So we're starting from the basics, with the basics, and we're trying to increase that. The other area, of course, is compliance. We have had no violations, and the compliance manager left in November. We currently have the U.S. Water compliance director assisting us with to ensure that we that the district stays within compliance. And finally, with the RO plant advising, we will be helping with certain items regarding the new plant as far as from the operator's perspective. One item in particular is the operators, the operability report, design report that we would participate in. So that basically is exactly what we are doing currently and what we intend to do with regards to where we are now and what we anticipate. And as far as the system in and of itself, we are finding that we're running into a lot of different issues that we had anticipated, but still, we still have been able to meet the objectives that we initially came, except for we still have a lot of maintenance that's required.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
You recognize.
To the councilperson's point earlier, I think more specifically, it was provided for in the contract as a maintenance allowance of approximately $1.5 million, and that is to address some of the maintenance activities that need to occur on the plant for its operation. And so that allowance is money that, if not utilized, obviously stays with the city. So the professional services of $4.2 million is not all inclusive of, or is inclusive of $1.5 million that's for maintenance related activities, but those are commodities and goods and items that we would purchase that would remain with the district. So I did want to make sure that that is on the public record.
Mr. Chair?
You recognize, sir.
And I'd like to continue with that. With regards to the amount, and it's not to exceed 4.2 million. 2.25 million of that goes directly to maintenance. And one of the ways that we think that we can help to let's say, mitigate those costs is one, if we get wells back up soon enough, the district does not have to continue to pay for the interconnect charges. And that would be very, very helpful. Right now, you're looking at possibly anywhere from $1.5 to $2 million over a 12-month period for rewarders coming from the interconnect. Secondly, when it comes to training of the staff, we think that there's things that the staff can potentially do and to also help to kind of to mitigate some of the contractors' costs, even like with us. So we're looking at that as well. And we also think that we don't necessarily have to have that particular amount included. However, from a efficiency and really an emergency standpoint, we are going to try and work with the procurement so that eventually you wouldn't have to pay, let's say, the additional fee when it comes to this amount. So we think that based on some of the plans that we have in place and with the training, and we think we can help to mitigate that cost as soon as we can get some of these other these wells in particular up and running.
Mr. Chair?
Mayor, and then Board Member Spiritus.
Question, where's the $4.2 million coming from?
I'm sorry?
The 4.2 million, where's that coming from?
Okay, the $4.2 million is for staffing, and then like I said before, 2.25 million of that deals specifically with maintenance purchases.
So it may not be a question for you. Mr. Evans or Mr. Sherman, where does that $4.2 million come from?
Mr. Chair. The $2.2 million is money that we appropriated in the budget as part of the budget process. So, and then the other $2 million is from contingency in the utility district.
Mr. Chair?
Recognize.
How much is left in contingency?
Mr.
Good evening again, Randy Sherman, District Finance Director. I believe the question was how much did we budget in contingency for this
How
year?
much is left in there?
So we budgeted $2 million. We're pulling that entire $2 million
From the whole
to fund this.
So it'd
Yes,
be nothing else in,
correct.
we're not pulling from anywhere else.
No, nowhere else.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Board Member Spiritus, you recognize.
So, Mr. Miller, can you tell me, and that 2.2 million, is that 2.2 for the maintenance?
Yeah, combined of all of the maintenance activities, and that's to include the 15% that we have for those purchases.
Can you tell me what type of maintenance, what you're referring to?
Actually, there's $230,000 right now that will eat into that amount. When we're talking about maintenance, we have the center softener that still has to be taken down and it has to be cleaned, and probably and there is the conveyance from the south softener into the filters that we believe is clogged. We don't know for sure, but we're having issues with that, and that is I don't know how far down in the ground. However, we're looking at ways to how to be able to actually redesign that to take it hopefully from not have to go dig, because if we start having to bring heavy equipment to get there, it's going to cost even more, we think. So we don't really know the cost of that, but we know it's going to be significant in order to convey the water from the center softener over into the filter as such. That's just one area. You have the high service pumps. We had an issue just on Friday where we had a power outage. We had 2 wells go down. We had 2 high service pumps go down. We had 3 lift stations go down. Yet and still, we didn't lose pressure. And I gotta commend the district. The team did well, but that's happening almost on a regular basis, and we have to we have to address that. And but because we have to prioritize things, we haven't been able to actually get to all of the equipment that's needed. We've been able to do an initial assessment on most of the equipment, so we have a general idea. But it is significant between the high service pumps that we're having issues and the transfer pumps from the air strippers over to the softeners, the saves all pumps that has to be worked on. We have been able to address most of the analyzers. There are a significant number of analyzers that were either needed to be calibrated, repaired, or replaced. So it's a significant amount of work that we have been able to accomplish, but there's even more that has to be done. So those are just some of the items.
Mr. Chair?
Recognize.
So this 2.2 million may end up being 5 million.
It could be, but I won't sit here and say that it will, but we won't know. Just for instance, just getting into, let's say, looking at one particular area, we're finding additional issues as we come along. So right now, can it be $5 million? I don't know. It could be, possibly. But right now, we feel like given the 9 months, we'll be able to identify if there needs to be an increase. We'll definitely bring that to the city's attention. But for the most part, I can't really say whether or not it's going to be 5 million more or less at this point.
Mr. Chair?
Recognize.
So do you have a time period on when this maintenance would be completed, or a guesstimate on when everything seems to be a guesstimate?
Yes.
So when do you think you can complete this maintenance? Will it be before the new plant is up and operating?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we'll for sure. I feel very confident in that.
Well, we're giving you a 6-month extension. Is that correct? Is this a 6-month extension?
This is the 9-month extension.
9-month extension. Will it be done within that 9-month period?
I can't answer that at this particular point because again, we are running into situations where the calcium carbonate overuse is so significant. We're finding it in places that that's just not typical. But we anticipate that we will have the majority of the work done in that particular 9 months. But again, if there are other things that we run into, it may be longer. But we think we can get a significant amount of the work done.
Mr. Chair?
Recognize.
This seems like a bottomless well, excuse the pun, but we don't really know where we're going here. Part of your job under this contract will be to train the employees, correct?
That is correct.
And you're going to be training them for the operation of the new plant as well?
That has not been decided. It was basically, we need to train them on this plant first. And I don't know exactly how long that's going to take, but there's such a wide variance that it needs to be some significant training done here. Can we help with the RO plant? That's a ways away, and given the amount of work that we currently have, we would do it if the city manager requests. But that is, we were looking not necessarily at doing the training for the RO plant. At least I hadn't considered it at this time.
Mr. Chair?
Recognize.
So my question is really to the city manager at this point. We're training people, but we don't have a full staff. We're missing an executive director, a deputy director, a plant manager. I don't know if we ever filled the compliance officer, and I think we're missing one engineer. Where do we stand with that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Recognize.
All those positions are posted. We are interviewing persons for some of those positions. We have selected a executive recruitment firm to assist in the selection of an executive director. So that's an advertisement I think will go out probably close to end of week. Mr. Miller and Ms. Melamood have been working with us to modify the job descriptions to be able to make sure that we get the right individual as it relates to executive director, but we are actively looking to recruit those positions and understanding that we want to get the executive director in because they need to fill the some of the manager positions. But if there are good applicants that come in, we do interview them. And I know staff has interviewed a couple of positions. And then on the 24th of February, we have a career fair where we're going to be doing on-the-spot interviews, and those are most likely going to help resolve any positions as it relates to operators and the like, because that's usually a good environment for persons in that particular discipline. So we are looking to fill all those vacancies.
Mr. Chair?
Dr. Spears, recognized.
Okay, well, as you know, I was the one who recommended hiring an outside firm to come in and assist us in the maintenance and operation. I didn't think it was going to take this long, but I guess we were in worse shape than I thought when we first got here, and I don't see how we have much of a choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments from the, I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, you done with the presentation?
Yes.
Thank you. Additional comments from the board?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Miller Anderson, you're recognized.
I do recognize we have a lot of work that needs to be done, and so I would support this 9-month extension, but, I didn't really care for hearing a lot of this. It's kind of up in the air. We're not really sure. When we come back in the next 9 months, that will definitely be something that I have a concern about. And I mean, my expectation is that everything that we're saying we're going to do, I'm looking for that to happen within this 9 months, so that we're not having to continue to extend and extend and extend to a point where we have basically turned over our water department to U.S. Water. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments from the board? Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any public comment cards for this item.
Roll call.
Board Member Lanier, Vice Chair McCoy,
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus,
Yes.
Board Member Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Chair Lawson,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any general public comments?
Yes, sir, we do.
Public comment shall begin at 5:45 unless there's no further business of the utility district shall begin sooner. If an item is being considered, then the public shall begin immediately after the item is concluded. Please be reminded that the board has adopted rules of decorum governing public comment during official meetings, which is posted at the front desk. In an effort to preserve order, if any rules are not adhered to by the chairperson, they may have any disruptive speaker, attendee removed from the podium or the meeting. Please govern yourselves accordingly.
Mr. Chair, and public comment cards for general public comments.
Thank you.
The first speaker will be Robert Pierce, followed by Adam Smith, and then Ed Dooley.
Thank you.
The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed. Robert Pierce.
Name again, I'm sorry.
Robert Pierce.
Robert Pierce, Utility District Public Comments. Pass. Thank you,
Adam
Robert.
Smith. He passed.
Adam Smith.
Adam Smith. Oh, Ed Dooley. Okay, so therefore the card. I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Oh,
If it's on city council agenda, you have to fill out a pink public comment card. The next speaker is Lloyd Brown, followed by Erica Davis and Mrs. Mary Bram.
so board, I'm sorry, public, this is a utility district meeting. We'll be starting our city council meeting and going right into general public comment. This is general public comments though, so you can discuss anything you'd like on the utility district or city council. So if you do want to speak now, you can wait till the city council meeting. Mr. Lloyd Brown, welcome.
Hello. To me, this is almost like if we were in a race and this was a pit stop. When we pulled in, we were in first place. And by the time y'all do something, we're being last. I mean, you sit around, you got more problems than just the water. It seems like you want to direct the people's attention so much on this water. And we got a store in Riviera Beach that's going to Walmart, buying stuff and doubling the price. And then you got people in our neighborhood who got 10 or 15 cars parked in the front of their houses. And I mean, but you'll mess with a man who has brown grass, and here it is, his neighbor, somebody around there got more cars. And then not only that, as far as I'm concerned, you know, I see these races that we're running and all the problems. Like, I don't have anything against Lawson, but you know, the girl, because whatever he did, and he can't run and he's going through a procedure to try to get in the run. I believe the person that want to take his spot, I mean, you just like anybody else who's here. And then, you know, when I first started, I stood behind these council people. I stood behind them, you know, because they talked about what they were going to do. And they haven't done a damn thing yet that they said they were going to do. And, you know, we got more of those trucks, food trucks in our neighborhood than we ever had. We got a house on Silver Beach Road. It's not as wide as from that table to there, but you know, who's letting these people come in? Somebody getting paid to let these people come in and do all these little things. Because when I was coming up, Mr. Marshall owned the property. He couldn't put nothing in there because it wasn't big enough. Now you putting houses in, I mean, you putting a 20 by 20 house in a 21 by 21 lot. I mean, somebody, whoever in the redevelopment or planning, zoning, whatever, y'all getting paid. I mean, it's a conspiracy over here in Riviera Beach. And what makes it so bad, I read this book about the art of war. You separate the people and you win the battle. And that's just what's going on now. This is a battle over here. It's not these people aren't in here to do anything for us. They filling their pockets up. I mean, you look back there, there's a lot of new cars back there, and they all drinking bottled water. So if the water's so damn good, why you drinking bottled water? Put a fountain right there, and then you get your cup and you take your behind over there and drink it. Because a lot of people can't afford to buy bottled water. And like, I got 2 dogs, and I have to buy them bottled water. That's something, ain't it? There used to be a time you can get up there and just drink the water right off the hose. But the point I'm trying to say is, y'all got your mind on this when there's a whole lot of other things that need to be done.
The next speaker is Erica Davis. Erica Davis, and then Mrs. Mary Brown.
Beach. Thank you, Mayor Felder, for the proclamation for my father-in-law. I appreciate it. It was a beautiful proclamation. I haven't been here because my father-in-law passed, Mr. Earl Pleasant, but I watched the meetings, and I'm truly disturbed again about what I saw when I came up here and mentioned about the 25-story condos being built on this side without a traffic study and without an environmental study. Now, I heard out of Mr. Spirit's mouth that he wanted to put a moratorium on Singer Island, but what's good for the goose is good for the gander. We should have the same moratorium over here on Broadway. And another thing, it is very illogical to try to build condos for 200 people, and we're having a problem with HOA fees, insurances, condo maintenance, and people are leaving the condos. Make it make sense to me. So what are you going to do? You're going to have the developer secure the property on Broadway and then tell you a time frame knowing that it's not going to happen in that time frame? Because it doesn't sound logical to me. It's not good business sense to build condos when you're having the market is going down with condos and people are leaving the condos. Make it make sense. You're not going to fill them up, and we're not going to get our revenue that we need. It doesn't make any sense. And third of all, we need that traffic study and environmental study. We had a standard of 5 stories to 8 stories to be built because of hurricanes. Don't think we're not going to get a category 5. Our time is coming, and it might wash everything on this side of town away. And you want to build 25-story condos, and you're trying to rush these people for doing their job with this water because you're trying to start these projects. And that's not right. I see what's happening. You stop rushing these people with this water. We've been out of water for years. Let them take their time so then they won't make any mistakes. Stop putting that pressure on them. Let them do what they do and stop telling them how to do their job, and you do your job. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
The last speaker is Mrs. Mary Brown. Mrs. Mary Graham?
Residents, we do have a few meetings, so if we can keep it down in the audience, thank you. Ms. Brown, welcome.
Miss Mary Graham, Riviera Beach. Happy Wednesday to everyone. And I'm sure that everyone had a good, happy Valentine. Miss Graham sure did. She had a 4-day weekend of it. But that's not why I'm here tonight. I'm sending out condolences to the officer and his family that was brutally killed over in the Glades. I will always stand with the police and the fire department. That's just who I am. And as a society and community, that's who all of us should be. Because when one of them hurts, we all hurt. So I wanted to say that. And all of this month is Black History Month. You see what Ms. Graham have on here from the front to the back. So let a man examine himself, see where we are here. This project, I have it here because everybody know I'm a reader. I encourage every household, every family, along with the schools, and I know some of them have it, Project 1619. This is it. This is who we are here. And when we go into it, a wide-ranging landmark summary of the Black experience in America, searing rich in unfamiliar detail, exploring every aspect of slavery and its continuing legacy again and again. The 1619 Project brings the past to life in fresh ways, multifaceted and often brilliant. That's what the New York Times said. Another one here, powerful. This work asks readers to deeply consider who is allowed to shape the collective memory. Like the magazine version of the 1619 Project, this valuable book sets itself apart by reaffirming readers' understanding of U.S. history, past and present. By teaching how the country's history has been one of the depriving the rights of one group for the gain of another, and how these marginalized work to claim the rights for all, the 1619 Project restores people's erased from the national narrative, offering a motivating, if sobering origin story we need to understand if we are to ever going to truly achieve liberty and justice for all. Get this magnificent. This just not Black history, this all of our history, because everybody was encountered in it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Mr. Chair, that is the end of public comment.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Comments, District Attorney? Oh, I'm sorry, we do have discussion from the Executive Director, Professional Services, Monthly Progress Report.
Yes, Mr. Chair, pursuant to the request from the board, those reports are available for public consumption and your review. We do have representatives from any of those entities if the board has any questions, but we did want to make sure that those are published and provided for on the record.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Thank you, Mr. Evans. Discussion, District Attorney?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Additional comments, Executive Director? I'm sorry,
No.
City Manager?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Discussion, starting with the mayor. Vice Chair McCoy? Sir. Board Member Miller Anderson?
None.
Board Member Spiritus? None. Board Member Lanier? We'll take a 5-minute recess and then we'll start City Council meeting and go right into general public comment. This meeting is adjourned.